The first one is what we call a parent function. Why do you think it's called the parent function? Anybody want to guess? There's nothing really happening to it, right? There's no number being added. There's no number being subtracted. Even this number right here is a 1. This is kind of like its simplest form, the simplest way it can come, okay? And then when you jump over to number 2, what did you guys get for the center? So where do you think that -2 and the -3 come from that equation? The 2 and the 3, except for their opposites, right? So the standard form of the equation actually looks like this. It's x minus h, quantity squared, plus y minus k, quantity squared, where whatever number is in for h and whatever number is in for k, that's going to be your center. The main other thing you need for a circle is its radius. Did you guys count the radius for number 2? Yeah, what'd you get? 4. You got a radius of 4. So where does the 4 come from in that equation? From the 16. What do you do with the 16? Don't divide it. You take the square root. So the radius is actually r squared. So whatever number is there, you square root it, and that gives you the radius. Okay? So even for questions like number 3, where you have all these fancy numbers in there with radicals and fractions, to get the center, you just take the opposite of this number, which is 2 rad 3, and I saw some of you change it to decimal, which you can, but really all you have to do is just write the opposite of the number and leave it as a radical. If they give it to you as a radical, just leave it as a radical unless you really like decimals. If they give it to you as a fraction, leave it as a fraction unless you really like decimals, okay? So that's going to be your center. Take the square root of 4. You should get a radius of 2, right? 4 is pretty self-explanatory. Flip it over to the back. All right. On the back, when we get to number 5, it's mostly in standard form, except for you need to do what? Add the 9 to both sides, right? Same thing with number 6. You just need to add 41 to both sides and then take the square root to get that radius. Okay, but when you get down to 7 and 8, notice that these two equations aren't in what we call standard form. They're in something called general conic form. Okay, but did you guys notice that once you figured out what the center was, did you see where you could have gotten it from? Who found the center for number 7? 2, -3, right? Where do you think this 2 came from? The 4, right? That -4, you take half. Okay, so I'm going to have you guys group your terms that have x in them together. So we're going to write x squared minus 4x down here. And then we're going to leave a space to make it into a perfect trinomial. We've done this before, right? You take half of the -4, which you guys said is the -2, and then you square it. So -2 squared is +4. Okay? Let's do the same thing with the y's. So we're going to take the y squared and the 6y, take half of the 6, which is 3, and then square that 3. 3 squared is 9. So we're going to write a 9 there. So we have this perfect square trinomial here, perfect square trinomial here. This -1, we're going to add it and move it to the other side, so it's a 1. Now, because we also added a 4 here, we have to add a 4 here. And because we added a 9 here, we have to add a 9 here as well. So that's going to get us our radius, okay? Now, we're going to take this perfect trinomial and write it in factored form, which is x minus 2 squared. And this one should be x, or y plus 3 squared. And now it's looking like standard form, right? Just by a simple making it into a perfect trinomial. And then on the right side, 1 plus 4 plus 9 is what? 14. So the radius is going to be the square root of 14. It should have been something like, what would that be? A little less than 4, so like 3.8-ish, 3.7-ish in there. You got 3.75-ish? Okay, that sounds about right. 3-point-something-ish. Okay. Let's do the same thing with number 8. Group your x's together, so you should have x squared plus 8x. What's the number that's going to complete that trinomial? 16. And then group your y squared with, what is that, negative 6y. So what's that going to complete that trinomial? Negative 3, so 9. All right, this 16 up here, we have to subtract to move it to the other side, and then add this 16 and add this 9. So these three are going to combine to get your radius. Okay, so let's write this in factored form. This one should be x plus 4 to get our center. And this one should be y minus 3 to get your center. What do all these numbers over here combine to get? Well, these are opposites, so it's just 9, right? So the radius on this one is easy, just 3.